virtual author chat. This author chat takes place every first Thursday. As a matter of fact, this is the last chat in this series for 2021, that is. And tonight, we are so excited to have a longtime friend of mine's here. Tonight, we welcome Miss Angela Gatlin Keys. Of course, she's from right here in Shreveport, everybody. She's a graduate of the University of Louisiana in Lafayette. She holds a Juris Doctorate degree, I believe, in from Loyola University. Um, Tonight, we welcome Miss Angela Gatlin Keys and her book, A Woman's Wit, Crossroads. Angela?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Ivy. I'm so elated to be here to share with you guys. It's like a dream come true for me. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, we're going to get right into the book. Um, Tell us what inspired you to write this book.
Oh wow. This book, it wasn't planned. I just, when we begin this venture with social media, I would just write my thoughts. I always wrote little notes here and there, and I had pieces of paper and notebooks and journals all over the house that I would just have thoughts, and I would always write them down. But once, with the advent of social media, I um, began to share my thoughts, and a lot of people would say, "Do you have a book? When's your book coming out?" And I said, "I don't have a book." Well, you should write a book. And after I got that so much, I said, well, maybe I will write a book. But I started small. I started with a blog, and that blog, A Woman's Wit, turned into a book. So that's how it all began.
Wow, tell us about the journey. Tell us about the journey that you took to write this.
Well, after I began writing so much and had so many comments, I said, well, maybe I should compile all of this in one space, because my only desire for sharing was to help people, because I would always share things and experiences that I had gone through. And I figured that if I had gone through it, that means someone else had gone through it, because, although we are all different and we all have different paths, we all have shared experiences, and we will experience the same types of trials and difficulties and highs and lows at some point or another. And I found that sometimes when I went through different things, good or bad, especially the bad though, I really didn't have a way to process it. Sometimes you don't have anyone to share with, so you feel alone. And you know, I always believe that we don't experience things just for ourselves. It's for a greater good, so that we can always help someone else. So I figured if I were transparent about things that I had been going through, then certainly my testimony could help someone else, and then they in turn could help someone else. And um, that's how life is supposed to be. We're supposed to be a community that feeds upon one another instead of praise upon one another, praise with the PREY upon one
Right.
another. And that was how the journey unfolded. It just unfolded out of my desire to be of service.
Would you say is that where a lot of the wisdom in this book comes from, the experiences?
A lot of the wisdom, a lot of the mistakes, the good and the bad, because, all of the things we do was, we don't always make wise decisions. And some of the decisions we make in lead us to hot water. But I have to share that as well, because I'm not the only one. And someone else, it may prevent someone else from taking a path that I took. It may cause them to reconsider um, their actions. And so, you live and you learn. And, experience is the best teacher. And all of those adages that I could say, all of them ring true. But until you have lived and really experienced something, um, then you can help someone. Because I can't, I can tell you, but if I've never experienced it, I can't empathize with you. And so
Right.
sometimes we need that empathy in order to reach people, because if I don't feel that we connect, then I just don't feel that you can understand where I'm coming from. And so that's the wisdom I have gained just by living and raising children and going to school and all of that, all of that.
Wow. I like this passage that you have here that says, we often remain locked uh, into rigid belief systems that limit our understanding, inhibit our growth, stifle our creativity, dim our vision, and squash our dreams. Kind of expound a little bit upon that.
Well, Ivy, you and I had similar upbringings and
Yeah.
raised in households where religion was a major dominating factor.
Mhm.
And we were raised, you can do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. And so, that shaped the way, at least personally, it shaped the way I viewed the world as opposed to good and bad. And it
Right.
left no room to experience life. And so if you do a certain thing a certain way and you always do that certain thing that same way over and over, you never get to experience any of the richness and the fullness and interacting with new people with different ideas. Just because they believe differently from you doesn't mean that they're wrong. They Mark Twain, I believe it's Mark Twain, said that travel, is the best teacher, so that you can meet new people and gain experiences and embrace different cultures. So when you know are too rigid, you never develop that flexibility, because life is fluid. Life is not one way.
Right.
Everyone has a perspective, and
Mhm.
your perspective is shaped by your environment, your upbringing. It's shaped by so many different things, and it makes no sense to believe that everyone is going to believe the same thing from here, Paris to Africa. That there's no
Mhm.
way. So we have to be flexible in our
Right.
approach, in our thinking, in our living, so that we learn how to embrace mankind, all of mankind.
Right. Because I believe that it's a truth. It's a truth across the board, and not just in one region.
The
Yes.
truth is the truth. And then there's truth, and then there are opinions, but
Right.
there are some things that remain.
Mhm.
Sometimes we take our opinions as truth,
Right.
and they aren't.
Right. Right. Exactly. Chapter one, start where you are. Tell
Yes,
us about start where you are.
yes. A lot of times we go through life, and we always, we do something, we mess up, and we start over. We say, oh, I got to start over. Um, but when we keep starting over, we'll never get to where we're trying to go. So
Mhm.
even when we start and make wrong turns, we've made some progress. We may have gone from point A to B, and then C went a little left, but at least we left A. So don't go back to A. Start at B.5 or wherever you happen to be, regroup, refocus, and keep on, because every step, every mistake, every good step brings you a little closer. So that's why I tell people, don't start over. If you start over, you'll never finish. You'll never get there. I talk about going to an event, and my GPS led me to an vacant field.
Right.
I said, okay, well, I know the party, this is not where it's going to be. And I looked at it and I knew I had put the address in there correctly, but it was a vacant lot. So I could have gone back home, about a 30-minute ride, and I would have missed the event, or I could have recalculated and I put the address in again the same way I had done before. And lo and behold, I was right around the corner from where I needed to be. So I didn't need to start over. I just needed to refocus and recalibrate where I was. And I arrived right on time. And so that should be our approach to life. We're not going to do everything perfectly at all, ever, ever. But that doesn't mean we have to go back to square one. It just means we take those lessons that we've learned and use them to keep going.
Yes. Chapter 2 is pray first, and I'm pretty sure that's pretty self-explanatory. But chapter 3 I found interesting as well. And of course, we're not going to give them all away, but we just want to give everybody just a little bit of taste of the wisdom that pours out of this book that I have found. As a matter of fact, I've read it twice
Oh,
because some things I just really needed to let sink in.
great, great. I've read it several times myself. Even though I wrote it, I said, that's a good point. I haven't been doing that, and then I have to go back and hold myself accountable to what I say.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, this book is really, it's sort of, it reminds you of the common sense that you just need to use every day. Chapter 3 is watch your mouth. And
Yes,
that sounds like some good mama advice there.
definitely, definitely. Yes, definitely. Uh, and that's probably something that I did get from my mother, because she would always say, watch what you say, because what you say, what you put out there in the atmosphere, you speak things into existence. So yes, that's something that I heard often growing up. Um, when I say watch your mouth, words are powerful, and they create expectations. And so when you say something or you say you're going to do something,
Mhm.
your audience, or the person you're speaking to, remembers that, and they create expectations. And so that's why we shouldn't speak, um, have loose lips and just say anything, because I'll say one thing to you and I'll say another thing to Samantha, or I'll say another thing to Tawana. And if I don't mean any of those things, then my word, that puts my word at issue. That means people will begin to not trust the things I say. And I personally, I'm always suspect of people who talk a lot, because I think the more you talk, that just gives you more room to you
Yeah.
know say a falsehood. Let me put it
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
But we have to be mindful of what we say, even in jest. I remember telling my daughter a few years ago, people would say, something would happen and it would be something funny, and they said, "Oh, I'm dead." And I said, "You shouldn't say that." And they didn't, she didn't mean it. I said, but watch what you say when you put things out like that. People, you have to be mindful of that. Um, those words can come back to haunt you. So
Right.
if you mean it's funny, just say it was funny, or I couldn't believe that happened. But that's, sometimes we talk and without thinking, but your
Mhm.
thoughts and your words should always be measured. That would save us from a lot of trouble, because a lot of times, people, how often do you see people who get in trouble because they just start running their mouth, and they're not mindful of what
Right.
they say. So, and words always have consequences, even though you may not have meant it that way.
Right.
Once it's out there, you can't unhear something. You can't
Right.
unring a bell. So that's
Mhm.
why you have to make a conscious effort before you put it out there, because words can do more damage than fists. People have been harmed emotionally, mentally, even to the point of perhaps suicide just by words alone. So once we realize that the power that words have,
Mhm.
they can inflict evil or they can do good. Once we realize that power, I choose to use words to do good for others. And it's a hope that, I hope most people will embrace as they go through life in their day-to-day conversations, whether it's personally or professionally.
Chapter 4, go inside. Um, you speak about inside yourself is a place where I live all alone, and that's where I renew my spirit that never runs dry, which that's a passage that I hold sort of dearly because there are times that I really have to get off to myself, go in and I understand the go inside.
Mhm.
And I have to go inside, settle inside
Right.
before I can come back out. Yes. Tell us about go inside.
I remember the day that I wrote that. I was working and uh, my job, I had a long commute. So I rode the van. We had a commuter van, so I wouldn't have to deal with that DFW traffic. And I remember I was on the van home one evening, and I would usually fall asleep because we had a great driver. But that day, I kind of fell asleep, but I had a flashback of my childhood when we would be outside playing. And then at some point, we had to go inside to rest and, have dinner and, get
Mhm.
ready for bed. And, there's safety and peace. We all have to have a place to escape from the craziness of this world. And sometimes if we can't always jet off to Hawaii or any, well, especially in this pandemic era, but sometimes you have to find that escape right where you are within yourself and shut off from the world. Um,
Mhm.
our phones, we are constantly connected to social media, our phones, there's television 24/7. The TV doesn't sign off at 11 o'clock anymore like it used to when we were children. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to put all of that because you can't hear from your creator. You can't even hear what's going on inside of yourself if you've got that constant noise. And so making a habit of going inside
Mhm.
just to enjoy the stillness, uh,
Mhm.
just to enjoy the stillness, that can do so much to rejuvenate your mind and your
Oh,
soul and your spirit. Um, because, there's chaos all around. So I think my tag for a woman's wit is be good to yourself. And so just as important as um, taking care of your physical body, which is vitally important by having a healthy diet and regular exercise, so is taking care of your spiritual man and your emotional and your mental state too, because they all work in tandem. And if one is off, it's going to throw something else off. And if two things are off, then it's going to spill over into the next thing. And then before you know it, you're a wreck because stress kills.
mhm.
It really kills physically, kills dead. And
Mhm.
so we have to be mindful of that. So we always have to take time to go inside for healing and rejuvenation.
Mhm. I think about there's a song that Karen Clark Sheard sings, "The Secret Place,"
Yeah.
and
Yes,
yes,
I heard that at all. Yes, right.
yes,
I'm reminded of who is, the garden,
mhm.
come to the
Come
garden.
to the garden alone.
That's what I mean. Just
Yeah.
stillness and sweet,
Mhm.
sweet communion.
Yes. 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 And don't make me shout right there because I know all about that secret place. Of course, chapter 5 talks about willpower, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows about willpower. If you want to speak on willpower, you can, but I like chapter number 6 that
Yes,
talks about not on purpose, but in purpose.
right, right.
And the passage there that says, when you walk in purpose, you collide with destiny.
Yes, that's good.
Yes.
That came to me because, sometimes we do a lot of things and we do them intentionally. We do it on purpose. Um, I meant to go to law school. I didn't stumble into law school, but
Mhm.
sometimes when we do things on purpose, we are not always operating within our purpose. We
Right.
might do it because of pressure, because of, what's expected of us, because of
Mhm.
that's what everyone else is doing. And it doesn't make it bad. But
Mhm.
a lot of times when we do something for outside reasons, we don't find that fulfillment. We still have that yearning and that craving was inside of us because it's only when we walk in our purpose, whatever that purpose is. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be something that puts you before the people. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Your purpose is individual and unique to you. And so that's why it's important to be able to go inside so that you can discover what that is. So
Mhm.
when we operate in purpose, that puts us on the path to fulfill that calling that I believe was placed in us when we were formed in our mother's womb, because he already knew, what it was. It's in us. It's our job to discover it. And so that's why rest and communion and all of that stuff is so important, so that we can discover what it is and not be swayed by the media or family or whomever. Although well meaning, it's still an individual thing, and it's something that we all have to work out, um, for ourselves. So operate in purpose, that it opens up your destiny. And that leads you to that fulfillment, that yearning that you have. You can't quite put your finger on it, but that's not it. That's not it. And sometimes we have to retool. Sometimes we may be 50 years old before we discover it, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean it's too late.
Right.
It means that you found it and go ahead and operate it.
Mhm.
Jesus's ministry lasted only 3 years officially, but what a miraculous and remarkable 3 years it was.
Well, I think Michelle Obama probably said it best when she said becoming.
Exactly. And that's something we should always be coming. Always. It
Mhm.
never stops. Never.
Right.
Always evolving
Right. Mhm.
and changing.
Right. And it kind of goes back to what you said, being locked in those rigid beliefs,
Mhm.
um, because we feel that people before us kind of, okay, you graduate high school, then you go to college, then you get married, and then you have children. It's that same repetitive thing
Right.
when that may not have been the in purpose.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Uh,
Spot on.
chapter, go ahead. Chapter number 7, decisions, decisions. You cannot make progress without making decisions.
And even when you decide to do nothing, that's a decision.
Mhm.
So you might as well take some type of action, because there will be repercussions regardless.
Right.
There are consequences of acting, and there are consequences of not acting.
I
Uh,
used to tell my children all the time, I said, everything is hard until you do it. A career is going to be hard, but if you do nothing, that's going to be hard too.
Exactly. Right.
Mhm, mhm,
Exactly. So you might as well, once you start making those decisions, the good thing about decisions is that once you make them, you learn from them and say, okay, well, I decided to do this. This didn't work out. Let me go to plan B. And you might get all the way to W before before you hit the jackpot, so to speak. But it's going to happen regardless. It's going to happen
mhm.
regardless. So go ahead and make that decision to and make that progress that you need to do to get to what you need to accomplish.
Chapter 8, holding back.
Uh, yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yes. It said, never lose by loving, you lose by holding back. You never lose by loving, you lose by holding back.
Someone once told me that always make sure the other person loves you more, um, because the person who loves the least, who cares the least, wins. In other words, if you care the least, then you're protecting your heart so that something goes wrong, then you won't be as hurt. And that always bothered me because I said, well, why would you compete to love someone less? You know,
Right.
that
Right.
that means you're doomed from the start
Right.
because
Hmm.
you're not going to put forth the effort that you need to make it work. If anything, we should be competing to see who can love the most, because
Hmm.
that way you will be able to give to that individual. They will be able to give to you. It will be reciprocated, and you won't say, well, well, I'm just not going to do this because I don't want them to take advantage of me, or I don't want this to happen. You love is pure. People abuse it, and they manipulate it, and they do all types of things. But you will find, I won't say 100% of the time, but I will say darn near close, that the person who was loved truly and they abuse that, at the end of the day, they are the ones who are left with the regret. Doesn't
Yes.
mean that you won't be hurt, but it will be a lesson that
Right.
you learn. But the
Right.
other one who held back will be left with regret. I shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Good.
And then at
Mhm.
that point, you know,
Our church folks used to say all the time they didn't want to rust out, they wanted to wear out. Also, there's a song by, I think that's Leanne Womack, I Hope You Dance. I hope you
yes,
never
heard
hear the
that.
mountains in the distance. I'm trying to remember all the words. Never take the path of least resistance. She's just got a lot of, she has a lot of metaphors in that song. And when I read the chapter Holding Back, that's the song that came to mind. Um,
I have
that you would rather lay it all on the table than to leave half of it on the table never used.
if you know you've given your all, you don't
Mhm.
have anything to be ashamed of. You can hold your head high because you know that you've given
Right.
your all. You had nothing left to give.
Speaking of giving, gotta give to get, which is chapter 9. If you don't receive enough, have a look if you have given enough, which I find even the Bible says that if you give sparingly, you reap sparingly.
Right,
Gotta
right.
give to
And
get.
that really ties into holding back. So I intentionally put those two chapters back to back because
Mhm.
it's a great segue. Most of the time we don't get what we need because we're so busy trying to hold on to you're you've got this hand open, but you've got this one closed. So you can only give a little, but you're blocking anything coming to you.
Mhm.
So, you know, when you have a generous nature, a generous spirit, you may not get it back. You may not ever get it back from the person you're giving to. But I am convinced that you will get it back 100
Oh,
ways from other avenues. You will never, I have never, ever
mhm.
given
Mhm.
anything away that I
Mhm.
missed.
Right. Mhm.
Never.
Never.
If
Mhm.
I tried to hold on to something, I remember I tell a story about, and I think it's in the book, where there was a family. My daughter was young, and so I used to buy these beautiful little dresses for her,
Mhm.
and she would outgrow them. And so I gave them to this family that had some young girls. And then I saw the little girl outside one day playing in the dirt in that beautiful dress. And I was appalled. I said, if I had known she was going to treat that dress like that, I never would have given. And I was like, oh my, but then I was immediately convicted that
Mhm.
it's not yours anymore. You blessed it. Now
Mhm.
you will receive the blessing because you blessed someone. And I didn't give it to,
Mhm.
that was not my purpose, but
Right.
I had to release that because that was the wrong attitude that I
Mhm.
had,
Mhm.
it, for whatever reason, maybe, I can't attribute to why the mother put the dress up. I was like, does she know how hard I worked to pay for that dress? And it was that kind of thing. But that was not my business. I was convinced that was not my business. Once I
Right.
gave something away, I had to leave it alone. And my children have never been naked. They've never gone without. They've never been hungry. Never,
Mhm.
not once.
Right.
And that's because I learned from that and learned to give a lot and be generous. And our needs have always been met. We've not always had everything we wanted, but our
Mhm.
needs
Mhm.
have always been met.
Mhm. Bishop T.D. Jakes has a story similar to that. He said that there was a gentleman in his church he gave a suit to, and he passed the
Oh,
guy's house and he's out cutting the grass.
oh gosh.
And he said the same thing.
He was probably
Um,
living for
but yes, I have found in my life that um, it's rarely that I ever receive from where I've given. So
exactly.
when you
Yeah,
give, you just have to give it and just give it away and turn it loose. Yes.
that's that's right.
And don't look for that particular thing to come back from that person, because when you do that, you'll lead a very miserable life because you'll say, I gave them this and they never gave me that. And then, it just creates issues, which
Yeah.
brings us to chapter 10. What is your issue?
This is also one of my favorite chapters. It's one of my favorites. Uh, I think I was fussing at someone, and I said, "What's your issue? Like what's wrong with you?" And I wrote this soon after. I think I maybe had to stop fussing and go write this because it popped in my spirit. And this is the story, recounts the story of the woman in the Bible who had the issue of blood. And
Mhm,
we all have issues. Hers just happened to be that, but we all have issues, whatever it is. If we are controlling, if we are, quick tempered, if we are, you know, whatever thing it is that we do or have or attributes that we display, that are not pleasing. We all have issues. So the thing that I really appreciated about that story in the Bible is that, whatever your issue is, just like that issue for her, it was personal to her.
Mhm.
It was personal to her. Sometimes we don't have anybody we can share it with. Sometimes we can use all of our resources and try to get help, and nothing seems to work. And then we have to reach the point where we have to learn how to trust God that this issue, that He can take care of that issue. And I always say, she didn't just believe, she had to act on that belief. If she had just said, well, perhaps if I touch the hem of his garment, I'd be made whole. And then, but she didn't go to where he was, and she stayed home. Nothing would have happened. Because sometimes we sit and I don't know, some people expect a miracle to open up, knock on our door. And sometimes it does happen like that.
Mhm.
But we always have to do something in that. We have to have faith and put that faith in action.
Right.
We have to do something
Mhm.
in order to put the plan. You have to believe it. You have to say it. What I like about this is that I said you have to do the follow through. And
Yes.
I likened it to the athlete. And I'm not an athlete, but I know that when I tried to play basketball, they would say you have no follow through. And if you notice that the players, they don't just throw the ball,
Right.
they throw it and they follow through. And you notice that their hands always go down at the end, because they have to complete it. If they did it like this, the ball would go over the rim, but they have to follow through. Even though the ball has left their hands, it's that follow through that still it's like the energy
Mhm.
continues and directs the path of the ball. So we have to learn how to follow through on what we're trying to accomplish. We can start, and we can
Right.
start hot and heavy, but if there's
Mhm.
no follow through, we're
Right.
gonna fall short.
Mhm.
So, you know, don't just talk about it, be about it,
Be about it.
do
Yeah.
it. Back
Mhm.
those words up with action.
Mhm. So many times, especially growing up, we would hear people say they would lay their hands on something that they wanted, but there was a whole river, a whole gulf in between
Yeah,
claiming it, well, naming it and claiming it. There was something there. There's something that you've got to do. If you never get the money together to go down and get it, you probably won't have it. And which
right,
rolls right back to faith without works is dead.
right. That name it, claim it. That was big and popular for a while, and that
Yes,
bothered me. Name it and claim it. But what's in between?
right, exactly.
I mean that I'm going to make an A on this test. However, I'm not going to study. I'm just going to put the book underneath my pillow.
Right.
So let's see how that works out for you.
If you make one step, he makes two. Chapter 11, As I Am.
Oh,
I'm not what I ought to be. I'm not what I want to be. I am what I hope in another world, but still, I am not what I once used to be. And by the grace of God, I am what I am.
that was sparked because I was tired of hearing people say that's just the way I am, you know.
Mhm, mhm.
And they often say that, as hey, I'm not changing. That's just me,
Right.
deal with it.
Mhm.
But no, that's not how that works. Yes, that's who you are, but that doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you should be content to remain that way. You know,
Mhm.
I can accept that you are that way as long as I see you striving to do better. Again, that's kind of like the name and claim it. I can accept that this is what you want to do, but I've got to see some action to try to get better in that area. You know, don't tell me my mama was like that, my daddy was like that. You know, that's just that Gatlin blood. You know, that's just how the Woodards are. You know, no,
I
no,
would
you
hear so often that that's just human nature, which that's what you're probably need to be trying to move away from.
that's a sign of that's like saying this is a generational curse and I'm good with it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, recognize it. That's the first step. You know,
Yes,
in AA, recognizing that you have a problem is the first step. What are you going to do about it?
right. Which leads us to chapter 12, discipline.
The dirty word.
And the passage for that one is hunger is the first element of self discipline. And when it comes to hunger, I
No, I would dare say billions of people lack discipline when it comes to hunger. You know, one of my favorite shows to watch is 600, My 600-Pound Life. I love that show. I watch it religiously.
Mhm.
And, but it's, you know, they, no matter if it's male or female, their stories are always the same. It's always the same. And hunger, or should I say overeating, is just one sign of a lack of discipline. And sometimes, you know, and I go through this elaborate process in the book because I had to do some study on that because I saw that quote, but I had to do some study on what makes you hunger, you know, how it actually, you know, the physiological signs, workings of the body. So, you know, I'm not going to recount that, but um, when we lack the discipline to, you know, stop eating when we're full, that means that there's some wiring that's off in there, and that has to be addressed. And the only way we can develop discipline is by doing the same thing over and over again. And I tell my kids, I've always told them that um, discipline is more important than motivation, because some days you will not be motivated
Right.
to work out or study, or well,
Right.
you just won't be motivated. Some days you might not even be motivated to get out of bed. But discipline kicks in when motivation runs out, because
Right.
you have trained yourself to
Right.
get up. And I get up every morning, and before I begin work, I do my stretching and my yoga. And you know, sometimes I would forget, and then I would feel bad, or you know, when I got ready to work out later today, I wonder why I was so stiff. And then I finally got myself into the discipline. I just do it automatically,
Right.
because I know my brain has been rewired to know that I need that. That's good for me. So I listen to my soft music and I do and that gets me going for the day, because I have to ease into my day. So you have to be consistent. And the only way we'll ever be effective in anything is by being consistent. And we can only be consistent once we have that discipline and exercise it.
Mhm. And if anybody's wondering how to get discipline, try doing the same thing for 21 days.
That's
21 days. 21 days. According
and if it
to
doesn't take 21,
according to I think it's psychiatrists that 21 days ought to change whatever habit that you
yes,
made.
yes, I've heard that. And it and hopefully it'll be, sometimes it takes a little longer than 21 days, but
Yeah.
keep counting every 21 days.
Yes.
Might take sets of them, but you'll get there.
Everybody, I forgot to tell you that if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comment box. Sam, I don't think I can read them because I'm on a tablet, so you might want to help us out with that. Um, chapter 13 I found real interesting. It says dirty toilets. Where did that come from?
That was funny. I used to work in an office building, and when the cleaning staff would come, when the cleaning staff would come along, and they did it during the daytime. So they would come on, and you would enter the bathroom. It smelled fresh and fresh, but then you'd go into the stall, and the toilets had not been cleaned, and that used to drive me. I couldn't point. I mean, why do you, that's the point of having, you know, a public restroom, and that would drive me. And so, you've got, it's good smelling out here, but then, and it wasn't that they were, you know, filthy, nasty, but you could tell that they had not been cleaned. And
Right.
so that sparked the thought that how, often people take care of the outside, they'll do all the work on the outside, taking care of their physical body and their hair and makeup and, going to the gym religiously, but they don't do any work on the inside, the
Right.
most integral part. That
Mhm.
you go in the bathroom, I hate to use public restrooms. So if I'm in there, that means I have to go. So, and that's the most important part. So we neglect what's on the inside. We do all of that, to attract, a partner and do all that work. But the inside is rotten. And I'm sure we've all met people who, just look amazing. But once you meet them, it's like, oh, you know,
Mhm.
sour attitude. No, I
Yeah.
don't. Sometimes I say that about Facebook. The good thing about Facebook is that it lets you know people, but that's also the bad thing about Facebook. It lets you know
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would rather just know them from afar,
Oh, right.
because the
Mhm.
inside is
Right.
dirty,
Right.
So
It-
that's the most important. Do that work, because what's on the outside is not going to last. You know, the Coke bottles turn into 2 liters. The 6 pack, or no, I don't. I see. I don't even have them because I think it's 6 pack, right? 6 packs. The abs turn into, that you turn into looking like a Pillsbury Doughboy. Work on the inside, because if that's
yeah.
what's where a true connection is made. Because if
Right.
you're only attracted by what's on the outside, once that fades, you're out of there. Work on what's the inside, but because that's where the true connection is made, and that's what's lasting. That's what's most important.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, you can have a beautiful face. And as
Mhm.
long as you don't open your mouth and nobody knows, you can slide right through life. But you open your
Right.
mouth or either send off your or all of that's gone.
Mhm. It is. It is. My favorite my favorite actor is Denzel Washington, and
Mhm.
I just love to admire him from afar. He could be a jerk in real life. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't
No.
want to know.
Right.
I will just
Mhm.
continue to enjoy him from afar and keep my imagination and my fantasies intact in my head. Don't let reality ruin it for me.
The meaning of life is to find our gift. The purpose of life is to give it away, which leads us to chapter 14 that talks about purpose.
As you can tell, I'm big on purpose.
Yes.
once we walk in purpose, if we're walking in purpose, that leads us to our purpose. And I just maintain that, there's a calling, there's a ministry.
Mhm.
And I don't mean a religious ministry, but there's a ministry inside of each of us, whether it's
Right.
service to others or, um, service within families. What maybe it's serving people by making them laugh, whatever. Everybody has a ministry, um,
Right.
that when we use it as it should, as it's intended, will heal someone and will encourage and support someone.
Mhm.
So we got to find that purpose,
Mhm.
and walk in it so
Have
that
you found your purpose? Have you found your purpose?
with this book, I am finding my purpose. I went to law school because, to make a long story short, I used to help my dad. He was the union president at the
Right.
VA hospital where he worked for years, and I would help him with, cases where people had been maybe wrongfully terminated or, suspended or, face some type of punishment for something. And so that's how I developed my love to help the little person. So that's why I went to law school, because I wanted to do, public service. I wanted to practice public service law, and that's what I did.
Mhm.
And so that was a part of it.
Mhm.
Um, Once you start walking it out, I
Mhm.
think that the things we are attracted to can lead us to our purpose. And
Mhm.
so once I started walking that out, even though I don't formally practice law well, I'm not in the courtroom anymore.
Right.
I'm still, but I'm just not in the courtroom anymore.
Right.
That sparked and led me to here where I am, which is what I believe in my purpose, because I still use my words,
Mhm.
and my thoughts to help people just outside of the courtroom.
Right. Well, and it's all about becoming, as we
Yes,
spoke before.
yes,
And
yes,
it's a constant, you're constantly evolving.
yes.
Um, and although you may have started with the law, you're still using words.
Hmm.
And from those words have become books.
Yes.
And probably from those books, who knows, you know? So when people say purpose, I believe sometimes they want to make you believe that you've reached a destination. There is no destination. Life is a journey,
It
and
is.
you will be walking this journey until you close your eyes, until you have breathed your last breath. That's what I believe.
Exactly. You are totally correct. Yes.
Mhm. So, for all of you who may be thinking that you've reached your purpose and you've reached your pinnacle, no, 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 no. Life is a journey. And even if you're teaching right now,
Mhm.
um, your next assignment may not be so much teaching in the classroom, but you probably will still be teaching. It's that
Mhm.
foundation of thing that you walk in. Um, your foundation looks like right now is words, whether
Mhm.
they be in the courtroom or out of the courtroom. Um, Chapter 15 says, "Let go." The
Yeah.
passage for that says, "Some of us think holding on makes us strong, but sometimes letting go, but sometimes the letting go, rather." Yes, which I found that to be true in my life. I turned 50 and I let so much stuff go, and I live such a stress free life now. And it's
Yeah.
just wonderful. It just feels wonderful to let go. Tell us about
It
let go.
it does. And you and I are very, very similar. I do believe. Um,
Mhm.
I think that people who are, feel sometimes when we feel that we have a calling, we have a desire, to maintain certain roles, and we become rigid, as we discussed earlier. Um, and we try to maintain that, to hold on to it, because we think we think we're in control. number one. Um, and we think we can handle it and that we know, but sometimes we can hold on to things, and although our objective may be right, sometimes the thing that we're holding on to is the very thing that we need to let go of, because it's the thing that's holding us back from purpose, from peace, from tranquility, from a life designed um, from living a life that's designed living life the way it's designed to be lived.
Right.
And I told a story in that chapter about my oldest daughter. She was a little toddler and she picked up a curling iron and she didn't let it go, and she was just standing there screaming, holding the hot curling iron because her brain was locked. She couldn't let it go. And that's how we are sometimes. We can hold on to things that just cause us pain, and we because we're stuck, we can't let it go to get that relief that we seek. But we have to learn that we don't control things, and because it's something that we might just be something that we want. And we know, just like little kids, everything we want is not always good for us. You can't let your child have a diet of candy just because it's the best thing. You have to make them eat the vegetables, because that's what's going to help them in the long run. And that's where that being flexible and open and willing to listen and learn, that's where that comes about. Because I know personally I'm a control freak, and I think that I'm better. Let me put it like this: I am much better. But I thought that I could control you know things, because my mama taught me how to do. I was telling my sister the other day how to do, so she taught me how to do, so I can often figure it out just because that's what I had to do. But sometimes when we rely on self too much, that's when we get ourselves in trouble, and we have to learn to let go. We do what we are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep fighting against the inevitable, and if
Right.
you keep trying to assert your will, your own will,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that leads to no good end. That
Right.
leads to stress. The scripture in one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible, and I just recited it last night, says he will keep us in perfect peace. And what is perfect peace? That when there's chaos all around,
Mm-hmm.
we still have peace. And
Yeah.
you can't understand it. It's not understandable, but there's
Mm-hmm.
chaos all around, because we
Mm-hmm.
have to learn to let go and see where it takes us.
Right.
That
Um,
saying, tie a knot and hang on. Sometimes you don't need to tie that knot. Sometimes you just need to let go. That rope could be burning the skin off your hands because you're trying to hang on to something that doesn't want to stay.
right. I wanted you to touch a little bit on chapter 16. My sister and I, Pat. Pat and I stayed up one night talking about chapter 16. Chapter 16 talks about love is desirable, forgiveness is optional, and trust is essential. You said, and being that I'm rushing right now, you said something in there that really ricocheted, especially in her. Talk about chapter 16 real quickly, because we only have a few more minutes and we're going to have to wrap it up. If you guys have any questions about the book, you could probably get in touch with Miss Angela Gatlin Keys. Great book here, you guys. Can you find it in our library just yet?
It's available on Amazon.com. So they
Okay.
can go to Amazon.com and order it from there. Just do a search for my name or the book A Woman's Wit Crossroads. They should find me.
Mhm.
if they want a signed copy, they can contact me directly, of course, for a signed copy. It's easiest to find me on Facebook. Again, I'm Angela Gatlin Keys. I do have a website, but I am technologically challenged, and so it needs to be updated. So the best way to reach me is through Facebook or Instagram. I'm on Instagram as a woman's wit also. And I'll be more than happy, or if you just want to, as I said, get it directly, just go to Amazon.com. It's available there.
Give us a quick, I guess, a quick word on that particular chapter, and also tell us what is the message that you want women, especially, and being that this weekend is Mother's Day, it's coming up Sunday. What do you want us to take away from this book? But first, give us a little bit about chapter 16.
When I say love is desirable, forgiveness is optional, and trust is essential, within relationships, you can love someone and you can love them always. That love does not necessarily fade. Forgiveness, that's an option because we choose to forgive someone or not. When we have been involved in such circumstances, that's a choice that we make. We know that forgiveness is good because it releases us and helps us to move on. But again, it's a choice. You don't always choose, if you love someone, even if they do you wrong, you don't stop loving them. But that trust, that's vitally important. You can love someone and not trust them. You can forgive them and still not trust them. Jesus loved and forgave Judas, but he didn't trust him. Once trust has been damaged, it's very hard to overcome that, even if there's love and forgiveness, because to me, that's the basis. That's the basis of any type of relationship. And for women going into Mother's Day, I'm so glad I'm a woman. I always say I wouldn't be anything else. I'm so glad that God created me to be a woman. We are the essence of life. Everything flows through women. Everything flows through women. And I think that God created it to be that way. What I want women to always remember is that in order for us to give and support our families and even in our careers, whatever aspect of life we're in, we have to take care of ourselves. Women are nurturers. We're often empaths. We feel, it's our nature to nourish and cultivate and push and support and encourage, but we give it all away and we never leave anything for ourselves. And sometimes we reach the point where our children are grown and gone and, and then we look around and we're lost because we have just enveloped ourselves within our families or within our spouses, within our careers. And then we're at a loss. We don't know what to do. We don't even know who we are. So I encourage women to love your family, take care of them, do that, but take care of yourself first. And I mean that. And that's not being selfish. That's being
proactive.
That's essential to take care of yourself first, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And if you are drained, you have nothing to give. You snap at everyone. Your patience is gone. Take care of yourself first. If you're in a marriage or a relationship, let him take care of the kids. Let your mate take care of the kids. You go and get you some me time. Me time doesn't always mean massages and pedicures, although that's wonderful. Sometimes me is just that stealing away to go inside so that you can get back to you and find out what's important to you. Because, if you're off, we are the foundation of the family. And if you're off, that family is gonna affect that family. It really will. Mamas are so important. So take time to love on yourself so that you will have love to share with those you come into contact with.
And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we wish every woman who has children a happy Mother's Day. And we thank you guys for joining us this evening for the Shreve Memorial Library Author Chat Series. And of course, this is the last uh, chat within the series, and we will see you this coming fall. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.